And I said to Debbie, I think I've hurt my hand. My fingers were cut, one of them pretty badly, and my fingers had been crushed, so I couldn't bend them. They immediately swelled up, they were all blue. And I was looking at my fingers, not actually realizing that I couldn't lift my arm up more than a few inches. Now, the Hebrew root word for heel is the word rafa, which means to relax or rest. So relax and rest and receive your healing. Literally, that's what it's saying. Now, I want to share a testimony here where I found that I wasn't relaxing and resting and receiving my healing. Now, normally I live in full health, but sometimes I have accidents and injure myself in certain ways. So I was in my workshop and I was making a box, a sliding dovetail box, and I was using a drill press, which is a automatic drilling machine that you can pull the thing and it spins around. And I was using a big, what's called a Forstner bit, which is a big bit, 60 millimeters over 2.5 inches, which is quite a big bit. And it was spinning around at 1,000 revs a minute. And I drilled a hole, which was fine. And I was going to start drilling in the next hole. And I don't know quite what happened, but I had gloves on, and my glove got caught in the bit that was spinning around at 1,000 revs a minute. And it twisted my hand around the bit, caught the glove, and twisted my arm and pulled me around. And unfortunately, the drill press wasn't screwed to the bench. So the whole thing, including me and the drill press, ended up on the floor. Unfortunately, there was a button on it which stopped it and it hit the floor. Now, I was shocked and a little bit traumatized by it and wondered what had happened. And I looked at my hand and my glove was torn to shreds and there was quite a lot of blood. And I was wondering what I'd done. So I sort of got myself up off the floor and went in, sat down, was feeling a little bit like, pale. And I said to Debbie, I think I've hurt my hand. She said, what have you done? So she had a look at it and my fingers were cut, one of them pretty badly, and my fingers had been crushed, so I couldn't bend them. They immediately swelled up, they were all blue. And I was looking at my fingers, not actually realizing that I couldn't lift my arm up more than a few inches. So, this had pretty much damaged not just my hand, but my arm and my shoulder. And I sort of sat down and sort of recovered a little bit and patched up my fingers and got all the sort of blood sorted out and patched them up with some plasters or whatever. And then I started to think, okay, I need to now work my healing. And I was looking at, okay, I got over the trauma. I was no longer feeling faint. And I started to look at, okay, this is not going to stop me. I've got a box to make in the workshop, so I'm going to get out there and finish it. That was my first reaction. And then I realized that I couldn't move my fingers. They were quite badly crushed. And I couldn't move my arm. So I'm like, oh, okay. So it'd be sensible, to rest. But I wasn't sensible. And I decided, no, this is not beating me. I'm not letting any injuries stop me. So I went back out into the workshop and I finished the box. And then I decided that I would make a table for the drill press that would enable me to do it more safely with clamps that I could hold down pieces of wood that would make it safer. And I then also reflected on what I would do differently, making sure I learned from the mistake and not did it again, that maybe I would use smaller bits and use more holes rather than bigger holes with bigger bits. So I thought, okay, I've learned from that. So then I'm, doing what I normally do is I am taking the position that this injury is not going to stop me, that I am going to find this fully restored. My hand will be restored, my shoulder will be restored, and I'll continue with that. And so I did. And the next day I went out into the garden. I did some chainsawing of some tree bits and logs and stuff I was going to do, did some gardening in spite of the pain. and I managed the pain. And because I was in fight or flight, and I was in fight, I'm fighting against this injury. So I'm not letting this injury affect me. And so whilst I was fighting and the adrenaline was going, I did what I needed to do. And then when I stopped, I was in pain. And so I sat in the garden. Debbie's daughter was over. She's a GP, a doctor. And I sort of said, she saw that I was holding my shoulder against my arm. Oh, what have you done? Well, I explained what I've done. She said, well, let me have a look at it. Can you move it here? Can you do this? Can you do that? No. Can you lift it up here? No. Okay, it looks like you've torn your rotator cuff, which is in your shoulder. It'll probably 6 months with physio, and potentially you can get steroid injections to help the inflammation, blah, blah, blah. My mind was, oh, thank you for that, but no, this is not going to stop me. This is going to be healed. I'm not waiting 6 months to be healed. So that was my attitude. I was in fight mode against the sickness or against the injury. And I was therefore not getting healed, actually. Now, normally I've worked sort of healing in this way, and I've been healed quite quickly of things, but there was a lesson to be learned here. So this, I think, was like Thursday. Friday, I had some meetings to do. Saturday, I decided I was going to cut the hedge. Our hedge is probably about maybe 50 yards, 50, 60 meters long, about 10 foot high in some places. So I got the Saturday, I got the ladder out, I got the hedge clippers out, and I decided I was going to cut the hedge. So I set off cutting the hedge. It was, again, I was in fight mode, so the adrenaline was flowing. I got over the pain. I was moving my body slightly, twisting to get the angle to cut the things, and I cut the whole hedge, and then I had to come and pick up all the bits. So I got the green big bin that the council comes and collects with all the garden waste. I filled the bin with the first lot of stuff, and then you can squash it down. So I got in the bin, climbed in the bin, and jumped up and down on it to squash it down so I could get the rest of it in it. And the bin, which has two wheels, just rolled away with me in it. And I came down and went down through the hedge. And guess what? I landed right on my shoulder. And whilst I was there in that split second, I first thought, oh, that's really embarrassing. I hope no one's watching with a camera. So I had a look around, no one was around. And then it was like, this isn't working. And God spoke to me and said, did you ask me what to do? And I'm like, no, but I know what to do. He said, no, did you ask me what to do? No. Do you want to ask me what to do? I think that's a good idea. I came to the conclusion whilst I was with my feet in the bin and my body on the floor. So I sort of got myself out of the bin, got up. I thought, well, I'll just finish putting all the stuff in the bin now, and I'm going to go and sit and I'm going to talk with God and reflect on what is it he wants me to do and what can I learn from this? Because obviously things weren't working out as they normally do. So I talked to the Father and I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, stop fighting the injury and rest in your healing. So I thought, oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that. What does that mean? Rest in my healing, rest in what has already been procured for you, healing. What Jesus did to remove all dis-ease and anything like that. So rest in it. Well, how do I rest in it? So I suddenly oh yeah. Jesus said, pray, believe that you have received. So how do I believe that I have received? Well, I live in thanksgiving and gratitude for the healing that's already mine. So I started to praise God, thank him for the healing, and rest. Not cutting more hedges or doing more gardening, but actually to rest in the healing that was mine, to stop fighting against the, in my case, injury or sickness, and rest in the healing, the sozo salvation, and the life and health that he's promised, and the immortality that I know belongs to me. So I changed my attitude from fight to rejoice and thankful and be grateful. And so I embraced that for a couple of days. And then on the Sunday, we went to the church meeting, and they had a ministry time at the end of the meeting. And I was sitting there, just rejoicing. And Jesus said, I think he said, why don't you go and ask them to pray for your shoulder and your hand? So I thought, well, I'm just resting in it. Do I have to? And he said, well, why don't you? So I thought, oh, well, there's no reason why I can't. So I went up, and actually this nice couple people lay hands on me, prayed for me. I literally got overpowered by the Holy Spirit. I managed to stay standing, which was quite hard. But I felt God's power, God's presence, and I felt again God say, just rest in what is already yours. So that's what I did. And then what started to happen is everything started to come back into health and wholeness. It's like, I can lift my hand up, move my arm without any problem. So within a couple of weeks, pretty much everything started to come back to normal. But God started then to speak to me, and he said to me, how easy is it for you to rest? I said, well, I'm resting in you. He said, no. How easy is it for you to rest? Do nothing. So I thought, well, I don't really like doing nothing. I like being active. I like doing stuff. I like being in the workshop or in the garden or doing things. So, well, how easy is it for you to rest? And I thought, well, I suppose not that easy, because I don't like it. So he said, well, okay, why not? Why don't you enjoy the garden rather than gardening? So I thought, okay. So then sun was nice and shining for that during that period. So I just sat out in the garden and just started to enjoy it rather than thinking, what can I do? What do I need to do in the garden? And then the father said, well, what about your holidays, your vacations? What sort of holidays and vacations do you have? And I thought, and I knew he'd got me, because their activity holidays were either doing city breaks, walking 30,000 steps a day, or going to different countries. We just been earlier on the year, we went to Antarctica and South America and all this sort of stuff. So he said, well, how easy would it be for you to have a relaxing holiday where you did nothing? And I'm like, well, I'd rather do something. Yeah, but how easy would it be? So I thought, well, okay. I thought, well, I'll go and ask Debbie if she would like to have a beach holiday where we just sit by the pool or the beach and do nothing. And I thought she'll never want to do that. So I went in there and she said, oh, great. Yeah, I can read a couple of books I've been wanting to read. So I thought, oh, okay. So I booked, got a last minute holiday, all-inclusive thing in the Canary Islands. And we went on holiday and we spent 10 days doing nothing other than walking by the beach, no excursions, no nothing other than just enjoying each other's company, enjoying the weather. I read a couple of books that were, I was asked to read. I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I can read those. And I enjoyed myself. So much so that actually we'll probably do that every year and just spend some relaxing time to which you can just physically rest. Now, I never run out of energy. It's not like I'm resting because I don't have enough energy, but actually it's nothing wrong in doing nothing and living in the thanksgiving and gratitude of everything that God's done. So that testimony of how I came into healing and how I wasn't getting healed really ties into the relaxing and resting to receive what he's already done rather than fighting for it. Now, next time, hopefully there won't be a next time. Hopefully I won't get injured again. But if I do, I will certainly be asking the Father to show me what he wants me to do rather than assuming that I know how to deal with this injury. Because I assumed, because this had worked before, I can do this again. And I was doing it in my own strength. And I wasn't at rest. I was fighting. I was fighting the injury. I was proving that I had power over the injury and it was not going to stop me and I would be healed. But actually, that is not what God wanted. He taught me a lot through that whole process to enter into that whole dimension of being at rest and letting that rest work in me to bring me into wholeness. So that was an interesting time. And I laugh at it now when I think of myself falling in the green bin and making a bit of a fool of myself. But actually, it was because I was being stubborn and I was fighting rather than resting.
Mike Parsons' new book, Unconditional Love. Order it from your favorite local or online bookseller today. More details at eg.freedomark.org/books.
If you enjoy these videos, would you please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe? It really does help. Thank you very much.